Hi, my name's Garrett with AM Solar. This is Cody, the sales manager, and James, the lead install tech on this project. We get a lot of requests for leisure travel unities, and we figured we better make a video on one. This has the works. So starting with the battery bank, we have two 200 amp hour LifeBlue lithium low temp batteries. The advantage of going with the low temp batteries is that if they freeze, they will get warm faster, so you can put a charge on them, which is nice because there's not a whole lot of insulation between that battery bank and the outside world. And James, what's another reason we went with LifeBlue in this project?
They're a perfect fit in these leisure trailers. They fit perfect front to back in here, leaving no wiggle room.
How hard would it be to install another battery? What would that entail to give you some more capacity on this?
All you would have to do is move these two screws for the battery strap over to the wall, slide in your new battery, put on a parallel, and move your most positive cable, which we've made long enough to go to it. It'll take about 2 minutes.
Great. Can you explain the purpose of some of this other equipment that you installed?
So we've got our Class T fuse. This is a fuse that we use for our inverter. It's a 400 amp fuse. And then we have our master on-off switch. So if you were to wanted to put this in storage, you would just turn this off. It would kill the entire system. And then you also have just your inverter on-off if you want to isolate that.
And a spare fuse, just
and
in
a spare
case you blow
fuse.
that. That's handy.
Yep.
All right. So when you upgrade one of these to lithium, you need to change the alternator charging solenoid, the existing one, get rid of that, and you need to replace it with a smart charger, because if you don't, you might overwhelm your alternator, because lithium batteries charge at a much higher rate. They have a lower impedance. And Cody, explain what some of the wires are that you need to tap into when installing one of those.
Yeah, the factory solenoid will have a engine side connection and a house side connection, which are both positive feeds to both battery systems. You just need to redirect those into the appropriate terminals on the Orion, and then it shares a ground connection that's a chassis ground. And after that, you just need to power it up, program it, and you've got multi-stage alternator charging.
So positive from the starter battery, positive from the lithium battery, and just a negative for the chassis. And what's the advantage of multi-stage charging?
It allows you to have the potential for charging your house battery system to 100%, depending on how long you're traveling and what kind of capacity you need to replenish.
And that's programmable for the specific battery chemistry, whatever brand battery you're using. And this is a 30 amp charger, so it's basically a steady 30 amps as long as it's not overheating or being throttled back because the batteries are getting full.
Exactly.
Great. So for the solar charging portion of this install, we did 4 Zamp 90 watt short solar panels for a total of 360 watts. The panels are all connected in parallel. There's a combiner box on the far side of the air conditioner. We used the Zamp wire rather than our custom tin 2 cable, which makes it easier for the customer to add on to the system. We bypassed the Go Power pre-wire that this came with because it was totally inadequate for the size of the system that we were planning on. We used a 50 amp solar charge controller to allow room for expansion, because there's a little bit of empty space on there. They might want to add some more panels in the future. The rig came with 2 flexible solar panels. We took those off because we really don't like how those perform, and especially we don't like how they look after about 2 years. Also on the roof, inside that air conditioner, we installed an easy start. Inside we have the solar charge controller and some of the other hardware. So Cody, tell us what we're looking at. Tell us what happened here.
All right, so over to the left here, you've got the 100/50 MPPT solar charge controller. To the right, you've got a main AC input breaker, as when we wire up our inverter systems in these 30 amp applications, we run full pass-through of the AC distribution system. So this becomes like a sub panel. This becomes your main input breaker. To the left of this input breaker, we've got the solar on-off switch, which will isolate the rooftop solar array from the charge controller if you need to. And then above all this, you've got the newest Cerbo GX monitoring system, which is Victron central monitoring for all subsystems.
And does that Cerbo talk to the TV? How do you get data off of that? What's that do for you?
Good question. If you have the Touch 50, that'll be your main point of reference, and I believe we put the Touch 50 up where the factory monitoring was, above the driver's door. And if you connect that to the internet, you can upload your entire system performance data to VRM, which is basically Victron's cloud for storage information.
It logs data, which is really helpful for troubleshooting. If you have an issue with your system, we can look at that log data and isolate what might be going on. This device here is also part of the battery monitoring system. And down below on the charge controller, this charge controller, the 100 stands for the open circuit voltage of the array, the maximum, but the way we have our panels in parallel, you're really probably only going to see about 24 volts. And the 50 stands for the output current of that device. And we have 360 watts on the roof. With this charge controller, you can expand up to about 700 watts, which means you might be able to add a portable panel in the future or take up some more of that empty space up on the roof. For the normal leisure travel Unity, 2 lead acid batteries usually reside under that step. But with a system like this, we put the inverter under there, and we also added these 2 vents to allow cooling for the inverter. So open that up, Cody, and show them what we've got. So that's a Victron Multiplus 3000 volt amp inverter. It has 120 amps of charging capacity. Anything else we should know about this, Cody?
Well, as we specified before, we did run the full 30 amp load center through this and full pass-through. Because this inverter system has hybrid technology, that allows the user to load assist or hybridize any of their AC circuitry if they're plugged into an AC input source that's less than 30 amps.
Great.
All right, another advantage to running your inverter system with full pass-through is the ability to run your air conditioner. In order to do so, you need to install an Easy Start, which we have done so on this job. You get about an hour runtime for every 200 amp hours of lithium batteries. And in order to make this unit fit, we had to remove the factory battery system, relocate the factory fuse block, which was behind the inverter, to the side, and then there's some really good access holes for running the DC and AC inputs and outputs and COM cables.
So in conclusion, this kind of system is the ultimate in what you would get with a leisure travel Unity. You can run an air conditioner, you can run your AC loads and not have to worry about running 2 loads at the same time. It's fully expandable both in battery bank and solar capacity. And if you want one in your leisure travel, check out our website, amsolar.com.